Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal and welcome to the start of another week. Champions League week, of course, for Arsenal. That huge game against Porto tomorrow night at the Emirates. Mikel Arteta will be speaking today ahead of that game. A little bit later on, about 4:30 p.m. UK time, scheduled to start his press conference along with a player today at London Colney. There will be an open training session held before that around 1:30 p.m. Some media and the cameras will be allowed to watch 15 minutes of Arsenal's training session today at the training centre. So we should get a little bit of a hint in terms of who could potentially be available and who might well miss that game. So we will discuss the Champions League game. We're going to have to discuss the Champions League game today in today's show because it's so huge. Can't wait for that. The nerves already starting, but plenty of other things to discuss as well. That massive game at Anfield yesterday ended in a draw between Manchester City and Liverpool. Means Arsenal sit top of the Premier League right now and will be top of the Premier League going into the final international break of the season with just 10 league games to go. It's all getting very real now, isn't it? So we'll talk about that and got questions and comments from you guys as well. And we've got to start at Anfield as it was yesterday's big game after what Arsenal did on Saturday night, leaving it late to get that crucial win against Brentford thanks to Kai Havertz's 86th minutes header. It was all about just sitting back and watching what unfolded at Anfield yesterday, safe in the knowledge that Arsenal had got the job done 24 hours earlier. And I wanted a draw. I know other people didn't. I wanted a draw. I thought that was the best result Arsenal could probably hope for. I just didn't want either of the two title rivals to get a win and to get the boost psychologically that win would have given. And that's what we got. 1-1. It finished, pulsating game as it always is when Manchester City play Liverpool. Really good game. City, I thought, were pretty comfortable in the first half. Liverpool were excellent in the second half, got that early equaliser with a McAllister penalty, and we'll probably be sitting there today thinking we really should have won that game. We had the chances to win that game in the second half. They didn't. They could have lost it at the end, of course, with Doku's shot that hit the inside of the post as well. But finished 1-1, and that leaves Arsenal top of the table. As you can see there, if you're watching it on YouTube, it is so unbelievably tight, this title race going into the home stretch. Arsenal sitting top after 28 games with 64 points, level on points with Liverpool, but ahead of them on goal difference. Got a 7+ goal difference boost on Liverpool. And then Manchester City, the champions, of course, looking to make it 4 Premier League titles in a row this season for the first time ever, sitting on 63 points, 1 point behind, but maybe crucially 11 behind Arsenal in terms of that goal difference as well. Next up, Arsenal versus Manchester City, or Manchester City versus Arsenal, on Sunday, March the 31st. How big a game is that? Look, I thought it was a really good game yesterday between two brilliant teams. It's just so many times when you see sort of top of the table clashes, the matches disappoint because the teams cancel each other out, things like that. We've seen it over and over again with some teams. But whenever Liverpool and Man City play each other, you don't really get that. It's always a really good game. And I thought it was a really good game yesterday. Like I said, Liverpool probably disappointed they didn't win. They should have won really with the chances they had in the second half. I thought City were very lucky not to concede a penalty right at the end in injury time when Doku, with that high foot on, it was McAllister, wasn't it? When it went to VAR, I fully expect them to be told to for the referee to be told to go over and look at the screen. I was surprised it wasn't. I know people said he got touched on the ball, but it was very high, and the follow through was. I just thought that was a foul. I think that outside the penalty area, that is a foul all day long. I was very surprised. So I think Manchester City got away with one there, and they'll probably be quite happy with the point. I think if you're watching on YouTube, you can see here, Opta have sort of crunched the numbers as they do, and they've got their win probability in terms of the title race of who could win it and the percentage right now of how it stands, the percentage likelihood of them winning it. I think it's really interesting. I mean, Arsenal are top with 10 games to go now. You know, basically, the title is in Arsenal's hands. I mean, it's a long way to go, obviously. But if Arsenal win all of their remaining games, which, let's face it, probably isn't going to happen because that would be 18 wins in a row if that happens, which should be a remarkable end to the season. So it's very unlikely that is going to happen. But if they do, then they win the league. And yet, when you look at the numbers there, Arsenal, 18.8%. Way behind Man City and Liverpool in terms of the probability of going on and winning the title from this point. So it's got the Opta sort of computer has Man City as favourites, 45.9%. Liverpool second favourites, 35.3%. Then Arsenal way down in third on 18.8%. So Man City well over double more likely to win the league from this point, according to those numbers and that computer, than Arsenal, which I do find a little bit surprising. You look at the change in the percentage there of the probability of winning the league after yesterday or the weekend's results. Arsenal went into the weekend with a 13% chance of winning the league, according to Opta. Now they have an 18.8%. So it's just gone up 6 points, 6%. City have dropped nearly the same, gone down nearly 6% from 51.4% to 45.9%, and Liverpool pretty much staying the same. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm surprised Arsenal are that far adrift of the other two. I'm not surprised because of the pedigree and both those teams know how to get the job done. They're used to this sort of they're used to being in this sort of position more than Arsenal are. Arsenal, of course, blew up last year in this position, which probably has to be taken into account. The difficulty of the run-ins probably has to be taken into account. Arsenal got some really difficult away games to go. But I'll tell you what, if Arsenal go and beat Manchester City next time out at the Etihad, I think that percentage is going to massively, massively change. I mean, Gold and Silver UK has got in touch here and said, brave opinion here after the Liverpool versus City result. But if we beat City and Liverpool win their next game, then City are out of the title race. Two teams will then be 4 points above them with a better goal difference. Highly unlikely Arsenal and Liverpool will drop the 5 points needed for City to win. What great motivation for the game. And also it makes it absolutely terrifying. It's definitely absolutely terrifying. I don't really agree with this, I have to say. When you say it's a brave opinion, I think it probably is a brave opinion. When you say Arsenal are highly unlikely to drop 5 points, I don't know about that. They've got some really difficult games, Arsenal. They've got to go away to Brighton. They've got to go away to Spurs, which is bad enough at the best of times. Going to Spurs is tough enough at the best of times, but let alone when you're going for a title and they're trying to stop you and they're trying to get into the top four as well. That'll be a really difficult game. We know how bad Arsenal are at Old Trafford, even when they're doing really, really well. We know how bad they are whenever they go to Old Trafford. So they've got to go and do that. Villa at home, they've got difficult games. I think Liverpool have definitely got the best run in. And I think Arsenal have definitely got the toughest out of the three. But even so, just going back to those, I am very surprised by those numbers. I thought Arsenal would be higher, given where they are now in the league table, given the form that they've been on since the turn of the year. But hopefully they can go on and prove everyone wrong. So let me know your thoughts on that. Okay, let's turn our attentions to that big game against Porto and it's really interesting who's going to start this game. I think for Arsenal, especially at left back, we saw Oleksandr Zinchenko come back, return from injury against Brentford. He got probably about 20 minutes at the end, didn't he? Jakub Kiwior's been doing a really, really good role, a really good job filling in that makeshift left back role, and has been growing, I think, in terms of his character, in terms of his personality. By the game, you can see he just looks so confident now, so much more confident. He looks like he feels like he belongs in and around this team, probably for the first time since he's arrived at Arsenal. He's always looked a good player. I've always been impressed whenever I've seen Kiwior, but he just looks different now. Just a whole aura about him, the way he's carrying himself. And I touched on it after the recent win at Burnley, when the way he celebrates tackles and blocks with Gabriel and Saliba now. It's the sort of thing I probably wouldn't see him doing in the early stage of his Arsenal career, but now he just feels so much more comfortable. And that, like I said, that he belongs in his team. And it's a big decision for Mikel Arteta to make, because he loves Oleksandr Zinchenko. He loves what Zinchenko gives to the Arsenal team. Yes, of course, there are deficiencies when it comes to Zinchenko's game. Defensively, he can be called out more than others. But when you look at the numbers and you look at the progressive passes forward and what he brings to the team, I can understand why Arteta always wants Zinchenko to play. And I think when you look at this game against Porto and how it's going to play out, like when I was watching the game in Porto, sitting there in the press box watching it all unfold, I was thinking to myself, Arsenal could do with Zinchenko here. I kept thinking it. And I think it's going to be a very similar game, if not even more of his Zinchenko game than the first leg was, because I just see Porto trying to really frustrate Arsenal. I'm sure they're not going to sit back completely. They are going to try and hit Arsenal on the counter-attack. And in that position, you could maybe be able to exploit Zinchenko in the space that he leaves behind. So that's something Arsenal have to be wary of. But I do wonder if Mikel will be tempted to go with Zinchenko in this game. Interesting to get your thoughts on it. So do let me know in the comments below whether you would be bringing Zinchenko back in for this one or sticking with Kiwior. I think I would probably err on the side of Kiwior just because he's playing so well right now. I don't think he really deserves to lose his place in the team. I think he's given enough going forward in that position. Certainly would not give him what Zinchenko would, but he's given enough, I think, to still warrant keeping his place in the side for now, especially if Zinchenko's not 100% fit. And in a game like this, you can't afford to have players who aren't 100% fit because it's going to be so intense. It's going to be so fast. Arsenal need to really get at Porto, and you don't want to be carrying anyone who's playing at sort of 70, 80%. So I think I would probably go with Kivior at this stage still, even though he's a bit of a makeshift left back. But let me know your thoughts on it. I'm really interested to see who you think should be starting this game and what changes Mikel should make. We'll find out a little bit more about Gabriel Martinelli later on today. Like I said, the cameras are down at Colney, so they will see who's training and we'll see, more importantly, who's not. Gabriel Martinelli was spotted on crutches after the game at the weekend, going through the mix zone, which does not look like a good sign at all, even though Mikel's still insisting that it is just a cut foot. I'm no medic at all, but you wouldn't have thought that a cut foot requires someone to go on crutches, but maybe it does. I don't know. But so I think we'll certainly get more of an update in terms of from seeing who's training or not later on today. But I think we'll certainly get more of an update from Mikel Arteta himself, because he will get asked about it. He didn't get asked about it after the game against Brentford because Martinelli wasn't spotted until after the press conference had finished. But he'll certainly get questions about it today. So it'll be interesting to see what Mikel has to say on it. William Saliba has been talking ahead of the game and how important it is. And he said, we have to win on Tuesday. We'll give everything. We can't wait to play on Tuesday. We were focused on the Brentford game and now we prepare for Porto at home and we will be ready. I think we've been horrible to play against in the last 7 or 8 games. Now we have to keep going like this because it's very tough to beat us at home. And we will give everything. Arsenal are really, really up for this game. No doubt about it. Immediately after the win against Brentford, all attentions turned to it. Mikel, I thought these comments are really interesting. Arteta is going to, I'm sure his press conference later, he's going to talk about this an awful lot. He is going to want an absolute cauldron-like atmosphere at the Emirates. And it's been brilliant recently. The atmosphere at the weekend against Brentford was fantastic. The Liverpool game recently was absolutely amazing. This one has got the potential to top it all. I think it's a game Arsenal have to. If you imagine this is Liverpool playing this game, coming back with a having it overturn a deficit at Anfield in a Champions League game, imagine what that night would be like. The atmosphere. That's what Arteta wants from Arsenal fans on Tuesday night, because he knows how important that is going to be to the players and helping them overturn this deficit. And he said this stadium is going to have an energy that you have never seen in your life because we haven't done it for 14 years. Bring your noise, bring your energy, your passion into that stadium, and something beautiful is going to happen. Like I said, it's got the potential. It's got potential, obviously, to be a horrible night, but it has got potential to be an absolutely stunning night as well. If Arsenal can go there, they could, the fans turn up and they're loud and intense, and Arsenal perform the way they've been performing recently and do overturn this deficit and get past Porto. It's just going to be a really, really special night in at the Emirates. It really, really is. And I think it could propel them to have a really proper good run at this tournament this season, because I do think, and I've said it before, that they've got the potential to go very, very deep, if not all the way in the Champions League this season. But they've got a huge game, and they've got that goal right at the end against Porto in the first leg has left them certainly not with a mountain to climb, but with a fairly steep hill to climb. And they've got to get over that hill on Tuesday night before you can start thinking about semi-finals or finals even. But yeah, the atmosphere is going to be incredible. I cannot wait. I'm nervous, ridiculously nervous. I'm sitting in the stands tomorrow. I'm not in the press box. I'm going as a fan sitting next to my dad. And yeah, I'm certainly going to have a few drinks before the game, I think, to take the edge off it, because it's going to be very, very nervous. And it's going to be a very, very tense affair. So with some of your comments and questions here, Aurora Freaks got in touch. Says, hi Charles, versus Porto, it will be a very difficult game. It will be interesting to see how we'll play without Martinelli. Will it be Trossard, Jesus, or Nelson on the left wing? Also, Zinchenko could come in for Kivior. What's your opinion on that? Well, I said at the start of the show, actually, the opinion on Zinchenko and Kivior. I think I'd probably still side with Kivior on this. If Zinchenko starts, I wouldn't be surprised at all. But my opinion right now, just the way Kivior's playing and how comfortable, I think he does look comfortable in that position. Certainly looking more and more comfortable than he did when he first came into it. That I'd stick with him, especially if Zinchenko's not 100% fit. In terms of Martinelli, that's an interesting one. I think I've got other questions. Yeah, here's one from Bodega Bay Brian. He says, if we are missing Martinelli for the Porto match, would you consider moving Jesus out on the wing with Havertz through the middle? Given his Champions League track record, it would be tough to leave Jesus on the bench, and he looked lively when he came off the bench yesterday. A lot of people have said that he looked lively. I thought he looked really rusty Jesus in that substitute appearance. But maybe I was being a bit harsh on him because I've seen a fair few people saying that they thought he looked quite lively when he came on against Brentford. I don't think I'd be playing him on the wing for this one. Again, going back to what I said about Zinchenko, I just think you have to have players that are 100% for this match. If Jesus was 100% and he was fully match fit and sharp, then he'd be playing for me in this game. Absolutely no doubt about it. But I'm just, from what I've seen from him so far, I just don't think he's there yet. I don't think he can be there after just a couple of substitute appearances. So no, if Martinelli's not playing, I'd stick with Trossard. I thought Trossard played well in the first half against Brentford. He definitely faded out the game a little bit in the second half, but in the first half, I thought he played well. He's done really well in the Champions League this season when he's played. Trossard, I know he was disappointing, but everyone was disappointed in the first leg over in Porto. But I'd stick with Trossard for me on Tuesday night. So he'd be the player I'd be bringing in on the left-hand side if Martinelli, as expected, doesn't make it. CDL Gaming says Brentford were the perfect team to play ahead of Porto. Teams that want to stop play, break up the rhythm and put us out of our comfort zone. That's exactly how Porto played in the first leg. Hopefully for the next leg, we don't get stuck with an official that's going to call a foul on Arsenal because a Porto player nudged another Porto player. Well, again, this is where I think the home fans are going to be so important. Arsenal have got to be right on the back of the referee. The fans, and they've just got to make it a really difficult game for Porto and for the officials. They've got to use home advantage. That's what Porto did over in the first leg, and that's what Arsenal and Arsenal fans need to do tomorrow night. They've got to make it. They've got to make it so intense. Really, really do. It's got to be really hostile in there. And if that has any sort of impact on the referee, then great. I don't think Porto are going to be able to get away with what they got away with in the first game. I just don't think it's possible when they're away from home. You do have that sort of home advantage, and I think Arsenal are going to have to use that to their advantage on Tuesday night. And I agree. I think the Brentford game was probably the perfect warm-up game for what Arsenal are going to face against Porto. Unbelievably, I think the ball was actually in play more in the first leg in Portugal than it was against Brentford on Saturday night. It was mad. I think it was 49 minutes or something. It was in play on Saturday night against Brentford out of the 100 or so with the injury time added on, which was crazy. But Arsenal kept their heads. They kept going. They stayed patient. They got their reward, and they're going to have to stay patient tomorrow night. And hopefully that will, what happened on Saturday will work in their favour tomorrow. Mr. Pleasurehead says, I'm so glad Arteta hasn't rushed Partey back. It shows that we learned from the past that Thomas isn't on it for at least 2 games when he's back from injury. Winning leagues is about luck, but especially about timing. His timing with Partey could be absolutely pivotal. Another 30 minutes against Porto and he'll be ready to start against City because we ain't going to the Etihad and beating them without Partey. I thought this was an interesting comment. So I've always had that game in my mind for Thomas Partey. Just get him fit for the Etihad. Whatever you do, get him fit for the Etihad. And that's maybe what Mikel Arteta is doing. He didn't get many minutes at all on Saturday night, Thomas. It'll be interesting to see what he gets against Porto. But right now, with the way Jorginho's playing and the lack of minutes Partey's had, and the fact there's only one more game before that trip to Manchester City, I'm beginning to think that it would be a bit of a risk to play Partey against Man City. Jorginho's playing so well. Declan Rice is playing so well with Jorginho behind him that I'm just, for the first time, I'm beginning to think, even if Partey's fit, I'm not sure he plays against City. Maybe he comes on for half an hour at the end in the second half, which could still be really, really important. But I'm not seeing enough game time for Partey and the possibility of him getting any more minutes or many minutes to think he's going to be absolutely bang on it for that game against City. And again, just like I say, against Porto, everyone's got to be 100%. Everyone's definitely going to have to be 100% at the Etihad. And I'm not sure Partey's going to be in that position just yet. Interestingly, the international break against that's coming up, Ghana didn't have any fixtures penciled in. But from what I understand, that Uganda have announced a game against Ghana, even though Ghana haven't announced it themselves. And Ghana haven't got a manager at the moment or anything like that. And they haven't called up or sort of indicated who's going to be called up for this game. Partey doesn't know if he's going to be called up for this game. But I think that'd be a disaster for Arsenal if Ghana, a sort of patched up Ghana team with no manager, do play this game against Uganda, which looks like it's going to happen. And suddenly he gets called up and has to go over for it ahead of the game against Man City. I think it'd be awful for Arsenal. I think it'd be awful for Partey as well. So hopefully common sense prevails in that situation, but we'll have to wait and see on that. All right, that's it from me, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. As always, I really do appreciate it. I hope you've had a very good start to your Monday, a very good start to your week. I'll be back tomorrow to preview that huge game against Porto and react to what Mikel Arteta has had to say in his post-match press conference. Until then, everyone, have a fantastic Monday. I will speak to you soon. Bye-bye.